factor that in, the unemployment rate would really be about 4.9%.
So,
Now,
so
All right, happy Friday, and welcome to Money in the Streets. We are in part three of our four-part series with Barry Habib, and there he is, looking dapper as always. We want to welcome everybody, all of our friends, our partners with AmeriFirst, AmeriTrust, and AmeriUno, and we are very excited to have. It's been about 11 days, I think, since we last met, Barry, and we're going to have a short turnaround next week. We're coming back on Tuesday. We'll remind everybody at the end, but we're going to come right back again on Tuesday next week and wrap up our four-part series. So how are you today, Barry?
I'm great. I'm great. We got a big jobs number today. You brought up the where we were. Mortgage bonds kind of struggling right now. We're down 17 basis points on the day, so we're watching that very, very carefully. Hi, everybody. Hope you guys are doing great. Good, happy Friday to everyone. We are seeing some changes in the mortgage market, right? Rates have gone up just a little bit, but that's okay. We want to be able to adapt to that. There's great things that we could do. We've talked about debt consolidation, how important that is to take what the defense is giving us, take that equity that is in homes right now. We did make a call last week, and we said that we think that the rate of appreciation of homes has probably reached an apex. Now, the media is going to have a field day with this. You're going to see things that the media is going to start talking about because when appreciation levels slow, they're going to misconstrue it and say that we're going to be in for a bubble, depreciation. Please don't even pay any mind to that, because what we want to make sure that we understand is that the level of appreciation will still be there. So home prices will still move up, just at a slower pace. And that's really healthy and welcome for us to understand. Now, we're also, after this jobs report, even though it was disappointing to some degree, there's enough there for the Fed to continue with on the November 3rd meeting, which, boy, it's hard to believe, November 3rd, that's just a few weeks away. That they're going to announce that they're going to begin tapering. So that's buying less mortgage-backed securities, and that will begin in December. So everybody thinks the Fed's buying 40 billion. And we talked about this on one of our calls. They're buying a lot more than that. They're buying really about $115 billion a month. And the discrepancy there is they're buying somewhere around $75 billion a month in reinvestments. That's all the refis you're doing when the Fed gets paid off the money from the bonds that they're holding, the mortgages that they're holding, and the principal payments people make. And when people sell their homes and the Fed gets paid from that, instead of just taking that and saying, okay, we're reducing our holdings, they're taking that and they're reinvesting it. So there's still going to be a lot of buying. The thing that's a little worrisome is inflation. It's been more persistent. The Fed lied to us and they said that, oh, it's going to be transitory. Now they're doing a 180. Oh, maybe it's not going to be so transitory. Team, inflation is problematic because bonds hate inflation. It erodes the rate of return you get on a fixed rate. I mean, you think about it, if things cost more as time goes on, what is a mortgage? What is a bond on a fixed rate? If you were holding a mortgage, let's say you were nice enough to give me a mortgage and I'm making a monthly payment to you, let's just call it $2,000 a month. Well, $2,000 a month this month will buy you a bunch of stuff. Next month, it buys you a bunch of stuff. Next month, it buys you a bunch of stuff. But if that was all on a shopping list, maybe you get the same thing this month, next month, the month after. But what you start to notice is a few months down the road, inflation, because it causes things to rise, I can't get everything on my list. So it's the same $2,000. It's just buying less stuff. So it's losing value. And the higher the rate of inflation, the more rapidly the value erodes. The only defense mechanism I have is to start at a higher perch to offset the erosion. The only way I get at a higher perch and get more money is if I charge a higher rate. And that's why when you see inflation, rates tend to rise. And this is why you are starting to see that. Think about what's going on right now, even with goods. Yesterday in our update, we kind of, every morning we have a little song in the morning, but the update in yesterday's update, we were joking about it. We said, boy, we know that the ships that are bringing goods from abroad can't even get an appointment to unload. So they're just sitting there. And when they finally do, the longshoremen who are saying that, hey, we'd work 24/7, they don't have a place to put the stuff that they're offloading, because in order to get rid of it, rail and truckers have to be there to deliver it. But they just can't get workers to come back to work in big enough numbers. So this is a problem. We anecdotally went around to restaurant owners and talked to them. And they're all complaining that they can't get people to come back to work. Now, we thought that when the September 6th expiration of these emergency benefits came about, we'd start to see more people come back to work. That's not in the data. In today's jobs report and hospitality services, very small amount compared to what they were expecting of people to come back to work. So what's going on here? We don't really know. The owners of restaurants don't know. But I think one of the things might be just time. It might be that maybe people want to go back to work, not just when their benefits expire, but when their bank account really needs them to, so we know that that's just the procrastination factor that many people have. So I think this will start to alleviate itself now that, we've come away from, more just benefits and paying people to stay home. Of course, some people still have COVID fears on their mind too. Let's not discount that. And then there's childcare concerns too. So there's a lot of factors out there, but maybe it's just time. And as that starts to happen, we should start to see inflation drop. But also, our economy is not in a position of great strength. We saw big numbers, but that was really as a result of the stimulus. We've talked about this before too. And over time, that stimulus wears off. Well, how about this? The Cleveland Fed, which estimates the level of gross domestic product or GDP, they had for the third quarter an estimate of a very robust amount, 6.2%. They slashed that estimate from 6.2 to 2.4. But wait a minute. And just last week, they slashed it again to 1.3%. Now, this is a very quick diminishing rate of returns for all the stimulus that's out there. That's why we're seeing this big rush to push more stimulus out there. Why? Because I think the government knows that we're headed for a recession unless they prop it up with another shot of adrenaline, another shot of steroids. Unfortunately, the price tag is put on our kids and their kids because this amount of debt just doesn't go away. And what we know about this is every period of time in the world, every place in the world, the more debt you have, the slower the growth you have. And I bring this all back home to you here by telling you that we think that 2023 looks like recession-like conditions, maybe an actual recession because of the slowdown. It may happen sooner. And when that happens, during recessionary periods, rates decline pretty significantly. I don't think you've seen the low in interest rates yet. And what I want you to think about is, as an advisor here, AmeriFirst is putting you in this position. The advice to be giving people is just to think about this as, do we want to spend a whole bunch of money in trying to get the lowest rate? Do we want to spend a whole bunch of money in trying to save payments by taking upfront MI? Do we want to spend a whole bunch of money in points when we might not have that mortgage longer than 2 years from now? Because there could be an opportunity for lower rates to refinance it. So I just want you to think about that as an advisor in helping your customers make the best decisions that will help them. You might recall back in 2019, I met with the AmeriFirst team in person. I said that there was a recession coming and said these exact same words of what to do. And well, sure enough, that did come to be. And it came to be prior to the lockdowns in March. We hit recession in January. So we see a similar setup. And I want you to think about these things as how you should respond as an advisor. So let's take a look at some of the things that we have here to talk about. And somebody's asking.
Hey, Barry.
Yeah.
I got one question in here. We thought timeliness might be perfect. Lori asked, when the stimulus checks stop, what will that mean for the real estate market if nothing else changes? And then you kind of touched on rates, and she says our rates are going up. When do you think they'll go down again? I think you touched on that a little bit, but that's
we did. We covered that. Right now rates are being pushed up because of inflationary concerns, and that's something that we'll have to deal with. I mean, they're still wonderful where they are, but I would assume that over time you'll probably see them cycle back down. And as I said, I don't think you've seen the low in rates, so I think you're going to see pretty favorable interest rate environment. Rates might go up, but they're not going to go to 4%. They might go in the mid threes, and by any measure you can stick, that's still a great rate. Let's take a quick look here and see. We talked about exponential growth by removing some friction points, and we know that the way that we typically work is we make linear growth. We take a step at a time. We try and keep it going in the right direction, but we encounter points of friction, and then once we remove that point of friction, we get exponential growth. And today, when we get that exponential growth, much like we saw when the point of friction of interest rates was removed, we want to be able to control that. Then over time, it does mature. So we have to continuously do this over and over again. And what I want to make sure we understand is that any situation where there's a lack of trust is a point of friction or a lack of experience. So your knowledge, your level of expertise is what it's all about. That's why the folks at AmeriFirst are many of them have gotten their certified mortgage advisor designation, and so many of them use the tools and gain the knowledge to help you make the best decisions. So you can build trust a couple of ways. One is we just mentioned, with expertise and knowledge, because that will win trust over in any situation. When you talk to somebody and they're making a lot of points that you didn't realize or understand, you start to trust them more, because subconsciously you say, wow, this person studies, this person learns, this person takes their craft very seriously. They're a master of their craft, and that's who I want to do business with. So I'm going to trust my transaction with them. But it's also vulnerability. And vulnerability really means not just selling somebody, but listening and telling them everything that could go wrong with the transaction, really treating that customer, treating everybody like they were either your parent, your child, your best friend, and really sitting on the same side of the table and advising them. And in all this, what we wind up doing is we wind up being better with time. You see, some people say, okay, well, time, I want to be able to manage time. Well, I haven't figured out how to do that. I watch the clock and I can't manage how it ticks. It just ticks. It ticks too quickly. But the way that people try to manage time, I think the real way to get the most out of the time you have is to be effective. So it's all efficacy. What are we doing with the time we have? And I think that we can learn a lot by listening. I'm going to ask you a math question here, and listen, you're on Zoom, so let's do this the honest way here. So let's just test yourself. Okay, no cheating. So don't have your phone, don't have pens and paper. I want you to do this in your head. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to say is we're going to say to you to really take this seriously and listen carefully. Okay. So we're going to listen carefully. So here we go. You're driving a bus and there's 6 passengers on the bus, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 passengers on the bus. Here we go. Next stop. 2 get on, 5 get off. Next stop. 3 get on, 4 get off. Next stop. 4 get on, 3 get off. Next stop. 1 gets on, 2 get off. Okay, so now I have some questions for you. You could put them in the question box, or you could put them in the chat window, whatever is easiest for you. But I want to ask you right now, how many stops did the bus make? So anybody want to answer that question? How many stops did the bus make? Let's see what you guys are saying. Okay, you could pop it in there if you'd like.
Kyle says 4. Brian says 5.
Okay, 6, 4. Okay,
Kyle with 2 guesses. I don't know about that, Kyle.
I see somebody at 4.5. I love that one. All right, good guesses. Good guesses. Okay, team, here's the answer. You ready? The answer is 4. Okay, next question. Get ready. How many passengers are on the bus? How many passengers are on the bus? Pop that on.
Dustin's got 7. Kyle says 2. Araceli says 2. Kyle with another answer at 10, going all the spectrum, low and high. Lori says way too fast for that.
All right, so the answer to this question is 2. All right, so very good for you guys who got that one. Very, very good. And I know quite a few of you did. All right, I've got one last question for you here. You ready? It's an important one. How old should the bus driver be? Let's answer this one. Write in the question box. How old should the bus driver be?
I don't see a whole lot of answers here. Here they come in. Araceli 35, 43. Brian, Donna over 21. Jeff says my age. A lot of my ages.
Okay.
47.
Old enough to drive. Old enough to be licensed. Mauricio, okay, good answers. So some of you definitely got it. So the reason why some of you got it right is because you did exactly what I said, and that is listen carefully. Because right after I said listen carefully, the very next thing I said to you was this. I said, you're driving the bus. And I showed this to you on the slide as well. So because you're driving the bus driver should be your age. But the thing of it is as salespeople, we oftentimes are so excited about selling that we don't listen as carefully as we should. And that's a really key component, is listening. Listening is very important, everyone. What we want to be is we want to be very effective in our sales approach. And I tell you what, one of the best ways I think to accelerate for all of us through the sales process is, believe it or not, to record your conversations. I mean, have you ever recorded your phone conversations? Most of us haven't. But if you do, it's almost painful to listen because, first of all, you wouldn't believe the crap that comes out of our mouth, number one. And number two, so many times you'll be asked a question and we won't answer it. We'll start explaining something, go off on another tangent, and we never answer the client's question. You can literally detect where you lost the transaction, or you can detect where you won the transaction when you're a viewer, when you're not engaged in the midst of the heat of the conversation, when you could step back and just watch it happen as a spectator and listen to it. You can see where you did things great and where you kind of went wrong. So this will help you. And if you're in a leadership position, listening to your sales team's phone conversations, and then you can identify and help them, you will help them accelerate as salespeople dramatically. This is a great exercise for you. Now, as part of this, I want you to be accustomed to thinking about how you ask questions, because asking questions is really important. And I want you to ask questions that are interrogative. I don't want you to ask verb-led questions. A lot of people in sales, it's like, oh, isn't this great? Don't you love this? Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't that be beneficial to you? Those are verb-led questions. We internally put up defense mechanism to that. I think that we're way too smart to be led by those questions. Let's use interrogative questions. So what's an interrogative question? So there's two I'm going to give you that I think you should ask on every transaction. And the first one is, what are your thoughts? And then just let them give you their thoughts. Let them just tell you what their thoughts are. This is where they will tell you what they like, what they don't like, what they're thinking, which might have some confusion or misunderstandings that allow you to clarify. Yeah, so I was thinking about this, but wouldn't it? Oh, no, that doesn't go. No, that's, I meant to tell you it was this way, or whatever it was. Or this is where they could say, hey, really, I'm really looking forward to the purchase of this home because I get more closet space, or I get this, or they start to see themselves in this home. Or I like this because the payments aren't a lot more than what I'm paying now, and I get so much more, or whatever it is. They start literally selling themselves as opposed to you selling them, which is much more effective. Now, the other one, second question that you need to ask, and this one is really important, and it is, what are your concerns? Now, when you talk about what your concerns are, somebody might say, well, isn't that something that's negative? Do we want to really talk about things that potentially could be negative? Absolutely. Remember, you want to be in a position of treating that customer like they're your parent, your child, or your best friend. And if they don't have any concerns, they say, I don't have any concerns. You give them what the concern should be. This is where you win relationships. This is what it's all about. If you were to be in a position where you're the customer and someone's telling you, hey, look, this is something you should know about. This is something you should care about. This is something that should be in your thought process before you make the purchase. To use a very simple example, if someone were looking for a car and they were really excited about the purchase of this sporty vehicle, and they were excited, and they drive and they're like, oh my God, it handles so great. And it's this and it's that. It looks great. It smells great. It feels great. And they go back to the dealership. Now, an inexperienced salesperson would go for the kill because they're looking for a transaction. But an experienced salesperson is looking to build a relationship because that's much more valuable over time. And what they would say might be something like this. Well, it looks like you're really excited about the vehicle. And yes, it's true. You mentioned that it handles great, and it sure does. But I also want to mention to you that part of the reason why it handles great is because the tires are made of a softer compound, so they grip the road better. And I noticed with the car that you're currently driving, these are softer tires, which means that they're going to wear out more rapidly than you may be accustomed to. And in addition to that, they're also a little more expensive. So before you decide to purchase this vehicle, I don't want you to be surprised by that. And I also want you to account for that in your budget so that you make sure that you can afford this additional cost that's going to come around in the future before you decide to make the purchase. Now, team, what I'd love to ask you here is, if you were the customer and I were the salesperson, I told you that, what words come to mind about that salesperson that you might consider? Anybody want to say something in the question box, that what thoughts come to mind when it comes to that? Let's see here. I see some stuff coming. Trustworthy is one. Okay. Anybody else want to integrity, thoughtful? I'm seeing some things here. They actually care. Honest. These are, look, team. If I can let that customer know that all these things you're saying, that I have integrity, that I'm thoughtful, that I really care, and that I'm honest and I'm trustworthy. Let me ask you, if something cost a little bit more, but it was from somebody you knew really cared and was honest and trustworthy, would you likely pay it in some of the cases, as opposed to going for something that was a cheaper option where you weren't feeling those same nice things? For me, I would. And perhaps for many of you, you would too. So we gain that trust. We let them know we care. We let them know we're honest. We let them know we're thoughtful and that we have integrity, not by selling them, not by telling them everything that's good, not by selling features, by telling them all the things they should watch out for, by showing them all the stuff that's bad. And that's the difference. Now, it's not easy to do that because we worry about our sale. But what I'm telling you is that this will come back to you over and over and over and over again by just letting go. In South America, there's these spider monkeys that are very hard to capture. And the hunters, they came up with a very interesting device at night, which is when these monkeys come out, they put a big heavy box, fill it with their food, ventilate it, and leave one tiny slit. So the monkey is smart, finds the box, smells the food, wants it, finds the slit, puts their hand in. As they take the food and try and get it out, their clenched fist can't get through the thin slit. And the hunters just come and pick them up. Now, all that monkey has to do to gain the freedom that they want is let go, but they're too afraid to. And what I'm telling you is that let go in the sales process. Let go. Be on the same side of the table from your customer. One of the best examples of this is with my personal favorite presidents, Ronald Reagan ever. I was always, when I was younger, I used to be so inspired by him and to see some of his old talks. And he was known as the great communicator. And what an amazing thing for this man and Mikhail Gorbachev to both end the Cold War. It wasn't easy. And during a really important discussion, they were sitting opposed to each other and it got heated. They started raising their voices. Ronald Reagan got up from the table, walked out, but then came right back in, extended his hand and said, "Hi, I'm Ronald. Let's start over." And it was just such a nice thing to do. But then what he did was really brilliant. He said, "Let's go for a walk together." And now you have two men leading the world, walking together, not opposed, but looking in the same direction. And that is how the Cold War, that was the beginning of the end of the Cold War. And what I'm telling you is, if you make your customer, not just your customer, your friends, your coworkers, your family, maybe the person who means most to you in your life, feel as if you're seeing it the same way, things get a lot easier and better for us. This is really just something that goes to show you the power of just vision in the same direction. So team, we want to be more effective with the time. And a lot of that is by being magnetic. And you meet people and you just say, wow, that person's magnetic. And we all want to be magnetic, right? We all want to draw people to us and have that magnetism, especially in our profession of sales. Magnetism is so important. Well, how can we be more magnetic? Well, I'll tell you two ways. Two ways to do that and accomplish that is, one is that everybody you come into contact with, make them feel smarter, have something to offer. We can't give what we don't have. And that means keep doing exactly what you're doing. And I applaud you because you're taking valuable time from your day so that you can hopefully gain some additional things that you could use and work with. Don't ever stop that. Always try and have something to offer. A lot of people research things and consume information, but they consume it to consume it. What I'm saying is take the next step, consume it within the back of your mind. How can I teach this? How can I offer this great information to help someone. And if you have things to offer, people will be more drawn to you, because if they feel like they're learning from you, if they feel like they're gaining knowledge, that they're gaining wisdom from you, it's great. And the other is make people feel better. Now, so many people are so grudging when it comes to making kind remarks or comments. I don't know if it's insecurity. I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know what it is, but let's get over that. And look, we're all guilty of that at times, right? But what I'm telling you is you will see what you look for. Next time you're in a crowded place, look around one time around. And then before you look around another time, think about a color. That color is blue or green or pink or whatever it is. Then look around and you'll see they'll all pop. You ever purchase a car and then every car that's like that on the road jumps out at you, right? You will see what you look for. If when you're with someone, if you're looking for good, if you're looking to find ways to help or compliment them, you'll find it. And by doing that, you'll make people feel better. If you make them feel smarter and you make them feel better, how can they not be more drawn to you? How could they not want to be around you more? How could you not become more magnetic? This is a very key element here. It's just better communication. That's all that this is, team. And in better communication, that's very important. And that's why AmeriFirst does something that's really wonderful when they try and communicate with their customers, because the customer wants to know something very simple. You've got all these loan options. Which one is best for me? That's really what somebody wants to know, right? So if you're a realtor, if you're a mortgage professional, this is something that's important to the client because they want to make a smart decision. And let's face it, with all the different options out there and all the different products, it's dizzying. Even if you narrow it down to just 5 or 6, customer really just wants to know what's the best for me. And that's why I love what AmeriFirst does here, is because they have the ability to show it the way it should be. See, if you ask me what's the best of these 5 loans for you, I could tell you that they're all the best for you. It just depends on for what period of time. So that's why when AmeriFirst puts this out and they say, okay, well, let's show it to them on a timeline. So from the beginning to year 2.5, it'll be a 30-year fix with 0 points with paying the mortgage insurance on a monthly basis. But then between years 2.5 and 5.5, it's a 7-year adjustable. But then after year 5.5, it's the 30-year fix paying 2 points and also paying that mortgage insurance up front. So pay the fee to pay it up front. So there's no monthly amount, but then you did invest money up front. You see, that is clear and makes sense. But what if the customer said, well, hold on, I don't really feel comfortable with the 7-year. Well, you unclick the 7-year and remove it. And now you see there's different ones here that come up at different time frames. And what if they say, well, I don't really want to pay those points. Well, let's click and uncheck the ones with points. So Mr. Client or Ms. Client, what you're telling me is this: you want a 30-year fixed rate with 0 points, but you just don't know if you want to have it with monthly mortgage insurance, which is less upfront cost, but a higher monthly payment, or with upfront mortgage insurance, which costs you more upfront, but it's a lower monthly payment. And the break-even point is 3.5 years. So you'd be better off with the monthly mortgage insurance for the first 3.5 years. After that, it's your upfront. So there's 2 things to consider. Do you think you'll be in the home for more than 3.5 years? Second thing to consider is, do you think you'll have the same mortgage? So if you think there'll be a recession, choose this. Or if you think you move, choose this. If you think that you'll be in a position where you'll either keep the same mortgage or be living still in that home, well, then choose this option. And you know what the customer finally says? They say, I get it. I understand. You are someone I want to do business with. And this is the right way, in my opinion, to be a great communicator. Now, a lot of the things we talk about in this series requires a bit of a change of focus. And that change of focus is something that isn't easy for us to do. And I want to share with you a lesson that I had on the track. I do like to drive cars on the track, and it's a lesson that I learned from a driving instructor when I was on the track. We were going pretty fast, and he says to me, Barry, he says, I noticed that you tend to look at the car in front of you. He says, don't worry, 99% of people that I'm with here, everybody does that. They look at the car in front of them. And I said, okay. And he said, well, you really need to be looking further down the road. And I said, okay. And I could tell like he knew that I really wasn't like absorbing what he was trying to say. So he makes me pull over. He takes a bottle of water that I had, and He makes me put it down in front of me and step back about 20 feet, 7 or so steps back from it. And it looked something like this. Now, what I want you to do is do the same thing he had me do. And he said, okay, Barry, I want you to just stare at that bottle of water. And I want you to do that. And he said, now you probably noticed that there's a sign down the road, but while you're staring at the bottle of water, can you read the sign down the road? And I said, I can't read it. I could see it, but I can't read it. He says, okay. He says, now I want you to look at the sign and read the sign down the road. Do you still see the bottle of water? And I said, yes. And he said, see, that's what I mean. And that was the aha moment for me, meaning that if this were the car in front of me, if I'm just looking at the car, I don't get a clear picture of what's happening. But if I'm looking down the road, I'll still see the car in front of me, but now I could see where the curves are, where the apex of the turn is, what the traffic looks like ahead. And while that's great on the track for speed, it's even more valuable when you're with your loved ones and your family, because I'm not relying on the car in front of me and their reaction time if something bad happens. God forbid, if something bad happens down the road, I'll see it before they do, and I can position myself more safely for me and my family. And in business, it's the same. In business, what we want to try and do is look further down the road. And what I'm telling you is the real estate market is going to be healthy for a long time, but the media doesn't understand it, which is why we have to understand what's going on. Rates probably move up in the short term, but the equity in homes will help people. And if you choose the correct products the right way and communicate it better and build relationships that are based on trust and being vulnerable, well, then your business gets to be in a position of growth regardless of the market that we're in. So guys, I'm going to turn it back over to you. We go, for the first half an hour or so together, and then let's take the next 10 minutes or so for all of you to share with us what your thoughts and questions might be, whatever it is on the market or anything we talked about. So we're with you here for the next 10 minutes or so, taking your questions.
Yeah, let's fill up the Q&A. Want to bring in maybe Doug Long, and I think Mark Jones is with us as well. See what you guys thought about part 3 of our 3-part series or 4-part series.
To me, it's all about relationship, right? And I love the way that Barry, you teach in parables, man. I love the stories, and that's everybody gets them. So I really appreciate it. That's how I've always told all my whole life, is get to know them as a friend and almost like a parent or kid or whatever, because that's what it's all about.
Well, Doug,
Life's too hard not to have friends, right? And it's good to have friends as business partners and your clients.
Doug, you are the embodiment of being a great communicator and making people feel great when they're with you. I'm gonna try and hit a couple of these questions if that's okay with you.
Sure, jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Rates will probably drift up because of some inflationary concerns and just news that the Fed's going to begin tapering.